Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a meeting tonight where we're going to talk about some basic financial fundamentals that have kept so many people in a real bad place for such a long time. I'm talking about single mothers. I'm talking about couples. I'm talking about folks that got 4 and 5 and 6 and 8 year education, academic discipline. It really doesn't matter. If they don't really know how money works, it causes a lot of problems. My name is Ricky Pitts, and I'll be your host for tonight. And I have been doing this kind of work now for a lot of years. It's very rewarding because I can see the difference, sometimes in 2 months, 3 months, certainly in 5 years, when they look back and see what they were a short time ago without a plan, and our plan really made a huge difference. I was talking to a friend of mine not long ago. He pastors a church in Montgomery, Alabama, Pastor Stephen Hundley. And he did a series on maintaining a healthy, God-centered relationship with money. And he talked about as a subtopic, legacy living. And it was amazing how he took that verse, and I think it's Luke 14:28, and really broke it down and talked about what man is it that intends to build a city, intends to build anything, that don't really sit down first and count up the cost just to see if they have enough to get it done. Because what happens if there's not enough to get it done, other folks will come by and see what they did and laugh at them and talk about them. And I think we've been in the workforce and living and having families long enough to know that people will talk. But we're at a place now where I think the majority are not concerned or should not be concerned about what people say. And kind of on that note, we're gonna kind of talk about how money works. It's gonna be a real basic concept, real simple meeting. We're gonna talk about take control, time and consistency. We're gonna talk about deferring taxes, buying the right life insurance, investing your money, paying yourself first, paying off debt, and then becoming an owner and not a loaner. And this is really important because I've seen so many cases where people, they're used to putting money in a place where the return is just that much and never thought about owning a piece of that American pie. And we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight. The number one thing we have to do is take control. When I say take control, we got to pay ourselves first. That's number one. Number two is adjust the priorities. Number three is change the way we think. Number four is adjust the lifestyle. Number five is earn additional income. And then avoid the credit trap. And then set goals and have a plan. I want you to really think about that fourth one is adjust your lifestyle. I'm from a real poor family, raised by a single mother that raised 4 boys in a place called Lochapoka, Alabama. Coming up, we didn't have a whole lot. Come from a real poor family, really didn't have much. But we know now that the Lord has really been good to all of us, and we just didn't have the things that a lot of our friends had. And so we said things like, when I get big, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to buy me all the chocolate milk and honey buns I want to buy me when I get big. And so what happened, a lot of folks did get big, and the honey buns and chocolate milk became another car, 2 cars, a Visa card, a MasterCard, and a Seals, and J.C. Penney's, and on it goes. And the lifestyle had gotten to such a place that where it was hard to adjust the lifestyle. And so where we are now is at a place in America where the lifestyle has got to be adjusted, because if not, it's going to be some difficult days ahead. We can't worry about the things that we cannot control. I can't control, you can't control Social Security. You can't control your job, you can't control taxes, and all that you see on that screen, you or me cannot control it. But there are things that we can control. We can control saving for retirement, and we can control other sources of income. Now, let me just talk a little bit about the other sources of income. Sometimes the reason a person does not want to work anything part-time is because they're worried about what people are going to say. What would they say to me? I mean, I got a PhD. I mean, I got a master's degree. I got an MBA. I have all these advanced degrees. I have a position in the public, and everybody see me every week. How would it look for me to do anything to moonlight? Well, the first thing we have to understand is that the people that we're worried about are not going to pay any of your bills. That's number one. So it's important to get past that point. Also, it's important to pay yourself first. We tend to pay everybody else before paying ourselves. We pay the water bill, light bill, gas bill, the cable, but really and truly put ourselves, for the most part, on the back burner. And it is us that's working so hard for the money. You see, all of us are going to get old one day unless we die young. We got to plan for a place that we're going to be in for the rest of our lives, and that's our future. And don't be surprised that you may be the one that is funding your caregiver down the road. And you know down the road is definitely coming. So let's talk about that saving money. So let's say you got a person here that average $50,000 a year over a period of 40 years, meaning some years they made less, some years they made a lot more, but an average, let's say a household, and that's not a whole lot of money, a household over a period of 40 years. They made $2 million over that period of time. And what they were able to save was $25,000, which means that out of $2 million, all they put back was 1.25%. You know, coming up as a child, they told us that if you make a quarter, save a nickel. If you make a dime, save 2 or 3 pennies. They said, don't spend all that you make. And I've heard him say, boy, your money is just burning a hole in your pocket. You just got to spend it, Ricky. You just got to spend it. Well, it's important now that we've gotten big and we have obligations and financial responsibilities and kids and wives and husbands, nieces and nephews that depend on us. It's important now that we start saving now more than we ever have before. Now, there's a 3-account system that we need to consider as well. Number one is emergency fund. Now, that's not for vacation. That's not for a down payment on a car. That is an emergency. The air conditioning goes out in the heat of the summer, in the height of the summer. That's an emergency. The car that I use to go to work in, the transmission went out. That's an emergency. The second account is a short-term savings. That short-term savings could be for a down payment on a car. It could be for a down payment on a home, but the home should be number one. The third thing is long-term investing. That's your 401ks and 403bs and 457s and TSPs, all the things that you put money back for the long term to retire with some degree of dignity. As I mentioned, down the road will come. And it seems like time is passing even quicker now than it did when I was a child. I'm sure those that have responsibilities now, it seems like a day goes by just like that. It's hard to believe here we are now in June. Half the year is about to be gone. So we've got to be about the business of getting things in place because time is not waiting on anybody. It's also important to have time and consistency. I think all of us would agree that even in a relationship to build trust, it takes time and consistency. Well, the same rule is true in our financial affairs. I can't start investing money, whether it's $50 a month, $100 a month, $300 a month, and say, oh my goodness, it ain't growing quick enough. It's been 6 months. No, 6 months of consistency, but not enough time. So depending on what we want to achieve, what our goals and objectives are, whether it be retirement, college for a child, an emergency fund, it's time, and it's also important to embrace this thing called consistency. Now let's talk about the high cost of waiting. Here's a young person here, 25 years old, and they said, Mr. Pierce, I want to retire. I want to retire at 67 years old here. And when I get to 67 years old, I want to have $566,000 saved. If they start at 25 years old, ladies and gentlemen, they can save $100 a month and be over time and be consistent And by the time an average of 9% rate of return, which is a pretty small rate of return, by the time they're 67 years old, they've achieved the goal. But if they wait until they're 26 years old, that's only 1 year. They're going to have 517,000. That's going to cost them that 1 year. That $1,200 there is going to cost them $49,000. That's that procrastination. And procrastination is the biggest nation in the United Nations. We know that you've heard that. And what happens, it paralyzes our growth. It stifles our creative ability. I'm going to get around to it. I'm going to do it. And time just does not stop while I'm waiting, getting around to do it. If they start at 40 years old, they're going to have $137,000. But since they waited to start at 40, that's going to cost them now $429,000 because they waited. You know, there are certain things that we should not and cannot procrastinate on because it hurts us. It hurts those that we're connected with. It hurts any kind of endeavor or dream that we have, any major contribution we want to make in ministry or in the world or in your old high school or whatever it may be. Procrastination hurts everything. Let's talk a little bit about that rule of 72. What this rule says, if I divide my rate of return into the number 72, it's going to give me, I was going to approximate the number of years it takes my money to double. So now if I'm getting a 3% rate of return, it's going to double every 24 years. So that 10 then goes to 20 in 24 years. And that 20 goes to 40 in 24 years. But if I'm getting a 6% rate of return, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to double every 12 years. So that 10 goes to 20, then to 40, then to 80, then to 160. But if I'm averaging a 12% rate of return, it's going to double every 6 years. So it goes from 10 to 20 to 40 to 80 to 160, 320, 640, 1.2, $2.5 million. Now that's incredible. One has 40,000, one has 160, one has 2.5 million, and they all started in the same place. Albert Einstein said the compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe. It's like the eighth wonder of the world. But what stops us from investing our money? What stops us from saving our money for an emergency fund? What stops us from having that level of success to where when we get to retirement, we can sit on the porch, or if you want to retire, if that's what you want to do at some point, and just enjoy it and watch the kids, the grandkids play out there in the yard? What stops that? There's an enemy that we know very well. His name is debt. And we got a case right here where this young man is trying to push this snowball up the hill here. He's pushing and pushing and pushing, trying to get it all the way up the hill. He got a little break right here. Then when he bought another brand new something with a big payment, and he's pushing again and again and again, he paid that off. He got a break, just a little rest right here. And then he jumped right out and got another bill, and he's pushing that thing up the hill a little bit more. Now, if he just stumbles anywhere right here, this whole boulder is going to come tumbling back down the hill, and boy, at the bottom, it's going to really be a mess. And there are many that they feel, I just can't get from under this debt. We just got to stop. Stop charging, stop purchasing, stop buying things that we don't need, trying to impress people that we don't know, buying things that we really and truly now don't need. And after a period of time, we get used to it and say, oh my goodness, I should not have done that. So it's a matter of making a decision to stop. Now, here's an example here of the debt stacking process. They got a retail card over here that's $220 a month. And that $220 a month, at some point, is going to be paid out. When that $220 is paid out, we're going to add that $220 to this other credit card, which is $353, and now send them $573. Now, this is gone, and that one is gone. Now, we got $573 here that's freed up. Going to take that $573, add it to the car loan, and now send them $1124. And now the car payment is eliminated. Now we got $1124 freed up. We're going to take this $1124 and add it to this other credit card that's $303 right now. But now we're going to send them 1427, and now that credit card is gone, and we got 1427 freed up. We're going to take this 1427, add it to the mortgage, and send the mortgage the whole 2720, and now that mortgage is also paid off, and they freed up $2,720 a month. Now, when that happens, the key is just don't jump out there and get in a whole lot of debt again. I mean, and listen, what I'm saying tonight is not meant to offend anybody. This is not condescending and not talking down. We're just talking about what's going on now. It is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to say this, don't be embarrassed about what it is. We just got to simply take our time and say, hey, it is what it is. It's going to take what it's going to take to get it back in place again, get it back in order again. That's all we're saying. But let's say that they don't do it. Let's say they said, we're just going to stay where we are. We're not going to do debt stacking. We're just going to pay and keep charging. Well, it's going to take 23 years to pay that debt off. They're going to pay $214,000 in interest alone, and they're paying $27.20 per month. If they follow a system, follow a coaching game plan, they're going to be out of debt in 9 years. That's 14 years sooner. They're going to avoid $130,000 in interest that they would have paid. Now they're only going to pay $83,000. And what's amazing, they're paying the same thing per month over here and the same thing per month over here. Ladies and gentlemen, it's organized economic defense. It's running a zone on that money, not trying to play it man to man. You're running a 2-1-2 on that money. And that it's important, first of all, to have a conversation. And if you are a single mother, single father, have that conversation with the children and say, baby, I understand you want to get this and that, and Al Jordan, all the rest of them, but mama just don't have it, baby. Okay, now you can get you a part-time job and I'll show you how. But mom, dad and mama, we just don't have it. And even if that's not the case, if it's a couple and two incomes coming in, have the conversation and get the pressure off and give yourself permission that it's all right. If I don't have it, hey, listen, I just don't have it. And it's important also to avoid the common credit mistakes. What's a common mistake, Ricky? Not putting value on that credit, number one. Raising credit card limits, number two. Not having a monitor on that credit history. How many times were I 30 days behind or 60 days behind or 120 days behind? Number four, not having a monitor on that credit score. And see, it need to be about 750 and it's 400. You see, I don't care what kind of income that person is making. If that credit score is there and that low, it's going to be hard to get a home or to get some things they want to get. So we got to slowly work on it. It's not going to happen overnight, but the good news of it is it will happen. And I want everybody to that little QR code. I want you to scan that. There's a book in that QR code called How Money Works, a free download. And whoever invited you out tonight, please get back in contact with them so they can talk to you in more detail. But on that QR code, there's a place called the Money Concept. When you download that, scan that code, it's called a Money Concept. The book is about 40 pages long, called How Money Works. Please get that and please read that book. Now, the sixth thing is not knowing your interest rate and fees. I've talked to some young folks. They want to get a car so bad. They say, I'm going to get me a car. And he goes to a car lot. And the man says, young man, you're going to ride today. He says, sir, am I going to ride today? He's a young man, you're going to ride today. He said, sure enough. He said, sure enough. How much? What's the payment's going to be, sir? Don't worry about it, son. Don't worry about it. We're going to take care of you today. All you got to pay is $175 a week. That's all. Sir, I can take care of that because I make $500 a week on my new job. I'm out of college. 29.99% interest. Didn't look at the fees, didn't look at the interest rate, but he riding today. He riding. And so another important thing is buying the right life insurance, ladies and gentlemen. This is one area right here that's kind of taboo. And folks don't like to talk about this. But everything living on this earth at some point will die. We got to plan for something that's inevitable, that will happen, and not let it be a taboo subject. But there's a certain time and a certain kind we need to purchase. In the early years, we got to have a lot of coverage. Why is that so important? Because the kids are young, the debts are low, the debts are high, there's a house mortgage. The loss of an income in these early years here would be absolutely devastating. But as time goes on, the need for life insurance here, it's going to start coming down. That need for life insurance is going to start coming down, but the need for real cash, that's going to start going up. We got to have some real cash on at that time because the kids are grown. Just there's only that, in this case here, him and her, only two that's left at this point. The mortgage is paid, the debts are lower. They got to have some cash money. That's why we got to understand all the dynamics are going to change as we get older. And as we get older, we have to, here it is again, adjust our lifestyle. Have y'all seen a guy that is like 75 years old trying to act like he about 40? You know, that don't look too good, does it? He didn't make the adjustments. That's the point I want to make here. And so the next thing is to defer taxes. Now let's talk about deferring taxes a little bit. Now I'm not going to cover all this in all the grave detail, but let's look at three scenarios here where they're putting aside $458 a month and doing it over a period of 30 years. In 30 years, by putting aside $458 a month and paying taxes as they go, that is $404,000. By putting that same thing aside every month and not paying any taxes on the earnings like a Roth IRA, the same thing, they got $629,000, saving the same $458 a month. Now you can put aside a whole lot more. You put aside $6,500 a year, $7,500 if you're over 50. And now they putting that money, let's say at a 401k, they're not paying any taxes on the earnings, and what they put in is also deductible. So it brings down the adjusted gross income. They put in $6,500. That's like almost as if they didn't make that money because they don't pay taxes on that. That's $839,000, ladies and gentlemen. You see, we've got to kind of fall in love, so to speak, with the future and how we're going to get there. And we're going to get there by saving money. And we have to make it a priority, because if not, it's just not going to happen just automatically. Now let's talk about all the differences of the traditional and the Roth IRA. You can put aside $6,500 a year in either one. If you're over 50, you can put aside $7,500 a year if you're over 50. That's called a catch-up provision. The money grows on a tax-deferred basis in the Roth and the traditional. In the traditional, when you take that money out, Uncle Sam is going to have his hand stretched out for his portion. In a Roth, when you take that money out, you don't have to pay any taxes. If you get a Roth IRA and don't touch it for the first 5 years, when you get to retirement beyond 59 and a half, anything north of 59 and a half, you can take out every dime of that money, what you put in and what it earned, tax-free, tax-exempt. And ladies and gentlemen, that's a pretty big deal. It's important also to become an owner, not a loaner. Now let's talk about how this is going to work here. Now, down through the years, we've been told all our life, baby, go down there and get you a good little checking account. Well, let's look at how that works. Here's your money. We're simply saying bypass the middleman and let's put your money where the banks are putting theirs, because it makes a grave difference. And it's also important to understand that this three-legged stool here is not what it used to be. Social Security don't look just real good. I mean, I don't think it's going to go away, but it doesn't look real good. And very few companies now have a pension program. And we just talked about saving money. Very few people are saving any money. Now, again, this is not meant to be an indictment on anybody. It is meant to ask all of us to do an assessment, to do a personal evaluation, to do some kind of home financial inventory, to see what we have accumulated, and also to see what we have in our closets and that accumulation too. So we realize we don't need to buy no more clothes, no more shoes for at least 3 years. Now, I know you say, Ricky, you're just going too far. Now you're meddling with me. You're just meddling. I'm not meddling, ladies and gentlemen. I'm saying that we have to, we got to look at some priorities. We got to look at down the road, because down the road is definitely going to come. Invest with professional money management. This is also very important because the typical investor don't have the time, they don't have the interest, they don't have the expertise to know who to invest in and who not to invest in. But a professional portfolio manager, this is all they do for a living. And it's important to understand that. Now, so what is a mutual fund? A mutual fund is a bunch of investors or individuals that's pooling their resources under the management of professionals. And they take that money to this global economy. And they put some in Apple, and they put some in Ford, and some in Toyota, and some in Pfizer, and some in Disney World. On and on it goes. Well, no more than 5% of my money is in any one company. So the losses are kind of somewhat neutralized over time. The key two words are over time. Remember, time and consistency. Now, it's important to also know that we can get this done. But there are 3 Ds to investing. One is called dollar cost averaging, meaning you want to start a certain amount of money you're going to put aside per month, and then don't stop it. The next one is discipline, self-control, and really deciding, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this every single month because I'm doing this for my future. And then diversification. You've heard folks say, don't put all your eggs where? In one basket. Ladies and gentlemen, this can happen. This is not pie in the sky. This is not mystical thinking. It's not mystical or magical. It's mathematical. And if we do it, we can certainly get it done. And we'll look back over time and say, I'm so glad. I was talking to a person some time ago. I had to install a Head Start program in Selma, Alabama. There was a lady there that was 45 years old. She said, Mr. Pitts, where were you 45 years ago? 45 years later, don't have anything saved. 45 years later, still having to go to work, and all kind of parts of her body are hurting and aching, but she still has bills, obligations. The kids could not help her or would not help her. 45 years later. What I'm saying tonight as I close this meeting, you can. Yes, you can get out of debt. Yes, you can. Yes, you can build a savings. Yes, you can. Yes, you can get on the path to financial independence. Yes, you can. Don't let anybody tell you you cannot do it because they'll be telling you wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, a plan of some kind is much better than a plan of no kind. I want to encourage you again to scan that QR code, download that book called How Money Works. You'll see it in the Money Concept. And please read the entire book. It's only 40 pages. And it's an education. Could have been 400 pages, but they cut away all of the commercials and got right to the point. Then there are those that were invited tonight by somebody else. I would encourage you to talk with them and talk about the next step in the process. And the key word there is process, because process does not deliberate. Process does not, we can't bargain with process. It is what it is, and it takes what it takes. Hey, look, y'all have a great rest of the night. Thank you so much for plugging into our meeting. We appreciate it more than we can tell you. Look forward to talking to you soon. Y'all have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.